In the thought phase begins when the team leader asks the participants to share what their first or most prominent thought was once they began thinking and not merely reacting to the trauma. What was in your mind? Not your emotions. What was in your mind? What were your thought processes? The transitional phase, this is the transitional phase between moving from the more objective, what is factual, what did I think, to the more subjective, up close and personal, what did I feel? Some thought statements may be emotionally expressed, but if the emotional content becomes too intense too quickly, then participants may become edgy or anxious and resist efforts to bring them closer to their own emotions. So you have to be very careful in this phase. Then you move to the reaction phase. And typically, this is the most emotionally powerful. This will generally flow easily without much input from the team. People have to think about what their thoughts were. They have to think back. What was I thinking? What was my first thought? But they don't have to think back to what their emotions were. It's right there. And so that'll start flowing. And so you might ask, excuse me, what was the worst thing about this incident for you personally? What bothers you the most? If you could erase one part of the situation, what part would that be? What aspect of the situation causes you the most pain? And this discussion is not going around the table or around the room. This discussion is an open, free-flowing discussion. From the emotional phase, you get all these emotions out on the table. There are all kinds of emotions that people will feel. Then you move to the symptoms phase. This is another transitional phase, moving from the emotional back to more thought-oriented material. And the symptoms phase is initiated when the team leader asks the participants to describe any cognitive, any thought or physical or emotional or behavioral symptoms that they're experiencing. Trembling hands, shuddering, the inability to make decisions, excessive silence or non-responsiveness, sweating, anger, irritability, verbal outbursts, sleeplessness, what I call the mental video, and dreams about the incident. After a traumatic incident, most people will have a mental video playing. It goes back through the incident and replays it from beginning to end. I had I was called out to a bus accident where an elderly lady got off the bus. She walked around in front of the bus to cross the street. The car behind the bus that was stopped, got impatient, whipped around the bus, struck the lady, killed her in the street. The two girls in the car behind the car that came around were affected very much by what they witnessed. They came to me a couple days later, asked to make an appointment at the department with me. They came in and they wanted to talk to me about what they were experiencing. So what is it you're experiencing? We keep playing this video, the mental video. It keeps going and going and going and going, and we try to shut it down. We try to put it out of our minds, and we're doing other things, and it comes in, and we don't know what to do. So I explained to them that when their brain goes into that protective mode, it kind of shuts down to protect them from further emotional injury. And if you will, it's kind of like taking a 1,000-piece puzzle and dumping it. And then when the brain restores or returns to more normal function, then the brain is replaying that video. It's part of the healing process, because what the brain is trying to do is go through the order of events and put those pieces back into the proper places. But it doesn't do it in a linear fashion. It does it piecemeal, a piece here, piece there, piece there. And so every time you're playing that mental video, It's picking up some details that you have forgotten that will help you to understand what took place in that event. So you need to see that mental video not as something to be suppressed, but something to allow to happen, because it will help you to recover from this event in a faster way. The same thing happens with dreams. I had a shooting incident in which someone drew on me point blank range and fired. The gun didn't fire. I wasn't shot. I wasn't killed. I dove to the ground, rolled across the floor, got back up. He left and was outside, and I could see him from inside where I was. I called 911, gave a description, gave a report, told them the gun looked to me like a Beretta 9mm black. You're looking at the gun. I have a better description of the gun than I did of him. But that incident lasted with me for a long time. I wasn't shot. There was no blood. But there was the imminent threat of being shot and of dying. And I found in my dreams, I kept dreaming about this incident, and I kept dreaming different dreams. It all started out the same. The moment I looked up and saw the gun was out and pointed at me, and he was in a shooter stance. Remember that clearly. After that, different scenarios played out in my dreams. There was a scenario where I have a .22 rifle in my office. I don't have any ammunition for it, but it was a rifle that a suicidal subject surrendered to me. And when it was all over, he didn't want it back. And so he asked me to keep it. So I keep it in my office just as a reminder of God's grace in that incident and hope for other incidents. But I could have grabbed that and gone out and confronted him. But, when I woke up, I thought, yeah, but the fact that it didn't fire that time doesn't mean it won't fire this time. That would have been a foolish thing to do. I envisioned going out through a different doorway and surprising him and tackling him and fighting with him. And I thought, well, maybe that's not such a good idea either. But I kept replaying this with different outcomes. And the different outcomes always got the guy. Okay. But had to go through that process. Play it out. Think about the options that I had available to me and determine whether or not the option I chose was the best. Get away from him, call 911. I think it was the best thing for me to do in that context. But it has to play out.